Okay, it just said you're live. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Wherever you may be on this little blue planet, how are you all doing today? What a week. It's been a hot week, I think, across much of the country. I know here, and I'm going to apologize in advance. It's Mercury retrograde after all. Had a conditioning that broke. It's about 100 degrees, close to it, and I got my fan, so you'll have to forgive me if I turn it on. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Big breath, big sigh. Let's all take a big, deep breath. I think we need it. I'm fairly good at saying, Alexis, throughout the day, take a deep breath. Do you know how often we can go throughout our day and not take time to take a conscious breath? I know you've heard this before, and you're like, yeah, Alexis, I know. We got to breathe. And we do breathe. The body is very, very intelligent. But to take a conscious breath, particularly now with all that's going on, is so important. So right now I'm going to ask all of you, let's start with this. Something told me to just start with this. I needed that. Deep breath. Okay. Let's get started. Let's get started talking about all the stuff going on. You know, as I was getting ready for today's show just a few minutes ago, putting on my lipstick, I was looking at the very first show that we did. I can't believe it. This is our show number 3. Very first show that we did about a month ago now. And I had opened up with a story for you all. I don't know, some of you maybe here that weren't here then, talking about this sense of literally feeling as if this planet has been transported somewhere else. And if you were there, you heard what I had to say and recall, the sense that I had and still have is not a figuratively speaking, moving from one place to another. From a consciousness standpoint, I literally feel as if we have been transported. So I wanted to listen to that again because I don't want to be redundant, but I do want to bring that up because it's going to fold into the theme that I want to talk about today, having to do with symptoms. I'm going to call this there's strange symptoms that seem to be popping up that are happening to the masses. Now, I know that in our community, the journeyers and all communities that talk of consciousness on a regular basis, this won't sound strange, but to the masses, when you talk about certain symptoms, and I'm going to call them maybe ascension symptoms, it's out of context for them. I wanted to do a bit of research to get a sense of what others, people in the lay public, let's just say, may be having, symptoms that they may be having. And I came up with some interesting things, both doing a little bit of Google research, as well as talking to individuals, as well as some of the things that I myself have been going through on a sustained level. The first thing that came up had to do with dreams, strange and vivid dreams. Now, journeyers, you got to know, when you go to Google, you may even be able to do it now, or maybe after the show's over. If you Google strange dreams and that's all you put, hit that space bar, what comes up? Strange dreams during quarantine, strange dreams during the pandemic, strange dreams, COVID-19 or coronavirus and COVID-19. There have been an enormous amount of posts, articles that have been written by the likes of the New York Times, New Scientist, Women's Day, Psychology Today, National Geographic, Time Magazine, the Boston Globe, talking about this absolutely ubiquitous phenomenon of people having vivid and strange dreams that they feel are linked directly to what we're going through. The reason why I wanted to look into this further is because, like a lot of other people, my dreams are always strange, but that's another story. They really are. They can be very difficult to decipher. But I have noticed a different pattern in my dreaming cycle, and along with other sort of anomalous or atypical symptoms that I have been having, including the ear buzzing that's happening. Okay, here goes the heat. I'm going to turn on the fan because it's really, this light is really, forgive me for continuing to talk about this. By the way, this is a great fan I have, Brookstone. What was I saying? The symptoms are unrelenting. I'm going to talk about that ear buzzing again, guys, because I know some of you out there, and I'm seeing a bunch of you. Hi, Doreen. Hi, Pippi. Hello, Mary, 555. Hi, Allison. You guys let me know, is it happening to you? We're going to go over a bunch of symptoms, but for me, the ear buzzing, what one of the journeyers referred to as white noise when they talked about it out of context. I hadn't even brought it up. And they said there's been this unrelenting white noise in both of my ears since March, February. I thought, oh my God, that's exactly how I would describe it. It's been 5 months, guys. 24/7, I can hear it right now. So that's been going on. Is anyone, I'm gonna stop right here because I think this is something worth going over again, because I want to try to dig into what may be going on here. Is anyone having this particular symptom, keyword here is symptom, of something? Ear buzzing. Okay, I don't see anything yet, and it's kind of hard to talk to you and look at the chat, but if you do, maybe raise your hand or give me a thumbs up. Okay, fine. But let's go back to the dreams, because I think this is one very key thing. So we talked about what they're calling, there's actually another name that they're using now, they're calling it COVID dreams or quarantine dreams. You know how we love our memes. So that apparently has come up. But the question is, what's going on? And what are some of these other symptoms? We'll get back to the dreams, but I want to look at some of the other symptoms that the mainstream seems to be reporting. And again, I say mainstream, these are not, I don't want to use the word New Agers. Let's just say they're not having spiritual discussions or may not be focused particularly spiritually, but they are reporting the vivid dreams, dizziness, odd sleep patterns, vertigo, and depression. And I want to tell you something about on the depression side. Now, look, at first blush, when you hear these symptoms, it would seem logical that all that we have gone through across the globe for going on, what we're past 3 months at this point, would make sense. We have been asked to put aside what I call channel normal, and dial into another channel that we have never seen the likes of before. Of course, you would think that, and with the nonstop news about what's going on. And we're not just talking about the pandemic. You know, there are, what I say, other layers that are going on of stress that would trigger stress. Of course, sleep patterns are going to be off, you would think. Of course, dreams may be impacted. We carry a lot of what we experience during the day into the dreamscape. And perhaps dizziness, vertigo, etc. And depression. Here's something I want to talk to you about on depression. And, you know, there are so many, I don't want to use the word side effects. I'm trying to think of another word, but so many other effects, sub-effects that are coming up as a result of all that we've gone through, not the least of which is mental illness. Here's something that the Washington Post reported back in May, and I'm going to quote here. It said, nearly half of Americans report the coronavirus crisis is harming their mental health, according to a Kaiser Family Foundation poll. A federal emergency hotline for people in emotional distress registered a more than, get this, 1,000% increase in April compared with the same time last year. Last month, this was written in May, so this past April, roughly 20,000 people texted that hotline run by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. No surprise, we know that things like suicides have gone up exponentially. I don't know the number, but I know that they have been a lot higher than normal. Substance abuse, domestic violence, etc. But without digressing too much, all of these things seem to be on par with the intensity of what we've gone through. That being said, and I want to be very careful the way I put this, because I don't want to underestimate the effects of what we've gone through as a direct result of what we've gone through. But here's what piqued my interest. Are you all familiar with something that's referred to as Ascension symptoms? Now, I have to tell you, the word Ascension, now I'm talking to the journeyers. I'm talking to the people who know immediately what that means, Ascension. And I recall talking to quite a few people who use that word a lot. And I'm like, I have an aversion to the word ascension because it sort of denotes hierarchy, ascending and evolving. That's another story. But for the sake of argument today, so I don't like to use that word, but there's something that's known as ascension symptoms. If you look that up, you're going to see a lot of references come up about even classic ascension symptoms. Perhaps they're symptoms that will come about as a result of a peak experience or a kundalini experience or a transformational breakthrough. But the point is, I looked at the features, on average associated with ascension symptoms. And here's what came up: depression, timelessness, losing track of time. Oh, by the way, going back to what the mainstream is reporting, you've heard this before, perhaps you're dealing with this as well. I don't know what day it is. That happens to me a lot, actually, but a lot of people are talking about that. Again, I can understand why. But going back to the ascension symptoms, timelessness or losing track of time, depression and hopelessness, disorientation, ringing in the ears, changes in sleep patterns, reporting dizziness or vertigo, and vivid dreams. And here's the kicker, guys. And this is something I just found out about, something called the Ascension flu. And they say that the Ascension flu resembles, I want to be really careful here about what I'm correlating. I just find it very curious. Ascension flu, these are physical symptoms that would resemble a flu, and yet somehow those that have put this together have attributed it to ascension as opposed to a physical breakdown. The bottom line is, what I noticed is that what the masses are reporting right now, that experts feel are a direct result of the pandemic. I say the pandemic, let's just call it this new chapter, because I think it's bigger than that. Comparing that with the classic ascension symptoms was a little curious to me. So the question is, and I have a note here, disclaimer. All right, YouTube. I know you're watching me. I am by no means downplaying that something very real is happening, but I'm also and always going to default back to the juxtaposition of what may be going on energetically. So please know that. We've got something happening on a very 3D level that's very, very physical. And we have something concurrently, I feel, happening on a metaphysical level. In fact, I've always felt that the metaphysical is what undergirds and gives rise to the physical. Ergo, the similarities in symptoms. Does that make sense? I'm going to stop there. I want to take a look at the chat. Michael, now I don't know if you're listening to the conversation, Michael, but because I know you're busy in the chat. Does that make sense to you? Am I making sense so far, guys?
Absolutely. There's a lot of feedback in the chat, and welcome journeyers from around the world. We literally have people dotting the planet, watching and hanging out together. So it's so cool.
Perhaps some of those people are having strange sleep patterns on the other. I was just thinking about the journeyers in Australia. I don't know if there's anybody from Australia, but what time is it there? We're 16 hours behind you. So it is literally, oh God, probably 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, something like that. Exactly. So if you're watching, I got news for you. You've got ascension symptoms.
Well, and welcome from the future. We've got a neighbor just down the road. Greetings from Boston. I've got Surrey, UK, Brazil.
Oh wow,
Netherlands.
Love it.
Portland. I'm in Arizona, Yorkshire, UK. We have people talking about ear ringing, ear buzzing.
Let's talk about that.
Less energy, much more mental, just fatigue, tiredness.
Right. Okay. All right. I think the consensus is clear, journeyers. Now look, left brain is going to go, no. This is, put that ascension stuff aside. Psychologists will say, mainstream psychologists are going to say, no. This is obviously based on our research. When the body is under stress, it's going to respond in like manner. I get that. I'm not saying that that's not true, but concurrent with that are other things that are going on, I feel. This is the type of thing that you can't quantify. I am never going to be able to give you proof. I doubt you'll be able to give me any proof. That's not what this conversation is about, of course, that we're dealing with an energetic shift, forgive the cliche. But I do feel again, going back to what I said, I hope you, if you have a chance, go back to the first Conscious Commentary Live that we did, because I was just so anxious to talk to y'all about the sense that I had, not just a notion. I remember I was making my bed upstairs, really grappling with how to explain to myself and perhaps to you one day what I was feeling. And I said, my gosh, you have things that are sort of great analogies, and then you have things that you literally feel are true. And the fact that, or the idea that this planet somehow, some way was, how they talk about the moon, that there's very controversial, of course, that the moon was rolled into place. I feel like the earth was rolled to another place. And because we are literally in another part of the galaxy, if that's the case, that could also account for the physical sensations that we're having, and emotional, by the way. Let's go back briefly to January 12th, because that's a marker that will remain evergreen for me, January 12th of this year, because that was the year that marked, the date that marked the cosmic conjunction, this Saturn-Pluto conjunction that was said to be, and I now feel it is, unprecedented in the blast that it would give to this planet in terms of an energy acceleration. And the idea that there were people that came from all over the world. I was in Uluru in Australia for the Cosmic Consciousness Conference. I don't know if there's anybody that was attending with me there, but if so, shout out to you. And everyone felt so excited about this idea that on January 12th, this is on the 10th and 11th, they were talking about it, everybody getting geared up. We're going to have an activation ceremony. And I think the consensus was that at that moment, 12:34 a.m., at Uluru in Australia at that time, that was a hot spot for the activation. It was going to happen, whatever it was or is. And I kept saying, guys, I got to tell you, I don't know where this is coming from, but I have a sense that it's not going to be immediate. This is something that we're not going to feel the effects of. And I don't know if it's good or bad or just big. I feel it's big, but you're not going to feel it for a while. Well, here we are. Here we are. I literally feel like that was what PMH Atwater just told me again. She was on the show this past Wednesday, that January 12th represented the trigger for this sustained shift in energy that would have a lot of physical effects, including the crisis that we're in right now. It can be very difficult to reconcile and something that we still can't quite understand, that being even the ability to go from a very dense physical dimension in a, sticks and stones world where flesh and blood, and yet there are other more subtle energies that are interpenetrating ours and can eventually perhaps carry us into what we call the 5D. Very difficult for the best of us, for all of you here, for me, to be able to synthesize left and right brain. Left brain's going, no, Alexis, no. This is all because of blah, 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 blah. It's a very linear process. It's up, it's black and white. It's very clear. Right brain's going, left brain, shut up. I'm telling you, there's something else going on here. So I think part of the challenge for all of us that may be having, because the best of us are going to say, okay, what is this ear buzzing really about? Like, am I just losing my hearing? Am I, there are other factors. I know there's some other, let's say, technology factors that could be having an effect. That may be true as well. But the bottom line is left brain is always going to try to have an explanation for you. The right brain's going to go, mm-mm. I think the goal here, journeyers, is to really try to bring about an equilibrium in our thinking about all of what's happening right now. I do feel that we are being tested in a way to both accept and challenge some of the more traditional understandings of what's happening, while at the same time integrating what's can't be quantified in a way that we're used to, but are equally real. Let me stop for a minute and see if, Michael, do we have any questions or anything that you'd like me to shout out? Because I can't keep up here.
I don't have any questions right now. Still a lot of comments. Still a lot of just in agreement here. Just let me read a couple.
Okay.
My heart goes out to the dark forces, for through their action, humanity finally awakes. May God bless their poor souls. Cryptical says, I think the spiritual and secular aspects of yoga, tantra, and Buddhism teach very legit information about living and reaching levels of moral and wisdom maturity are absolutely real and powerful. People are also just talking about, consciousness is fundamental. I was going to respond to Tim here. He's seeing 1111 and 444. I see that a lot more often on my clocks, and I don't know if that's just a synchronicity or what. I was hoping for you to comment on that.
Sure. Let's talk about the numbers. These things, again, are unrelenting. And the fact that they have been unrelenting. Look, people have been seeing double and triple numbers for years. I mean, 1111, I lectured about that 2 years ago as a clear phenomenon as to the impetus for, what's happening. We still don't know for sure, but I have a sense that what we're dealing with is something having to do with consciousness. Is there something behind it? Is there some intelligence behind it? Is there something that's beckoning us to engage with numbers as a language more? This has been happening for many years. However, it seems as if in the last 4 or 5 months, it's gone up along with the physical symptoms. There's a term that you may be familiar with that I became familiar with several years ago, coined, I believe, by dear friends and colleagues of mine, Trish and Rob McGregor. I brought them up on the show. They've been on the show several times, but they have a term called planetary empath. Now, we know about empathic people. I am shamedly one of them. I always say I don't wear that as a badge of honor. Very sensitive to not just subtle energy, but to other people, etc. I am empathic. I'm sure many of you are as well. But the term planetary empath deals more with people who feel physical symptoms as a result of fluctuations, not just cosmological fluctuations, but forthcoming events, including what's happening right now. Planetary empaths, I find that very interesting because I think what it really says is that people are becoming more inextricably linked to terra firma, to that which they are on, and really communicating with it. And so it's giving feedback. I'm going to turn my fan back on. It's giving feedback as to you as to what's happening. Planetary empath. Is anybody familiar with that term? And if so, if not, would you describe yourself as being that way, as having, again, a planetary empath is an individual that will not just have emotional response to certain environments, but physical as well. Hence the reason, perhaps, for hearing, that's a physical symptom, hearing white noise or buzzing in the ears, feeling vertigo. A lot of planetary empaths talk about vertigo as a symptom, but it's not consistent. It typically will precede or work in tandem with an event that's going on. When you think
May I jump in for a moment?
Absolutely.
Do you think, Alexis, that ability for more people to become more grounded to terra firma has anything to do with the global shutdown, less supply chains, manufacturing, less business and commerce is happening right now?
Yeah.
And with all that, less technology, less data emissions, do you think that we're being, as more animals are coming out in nature, do you think that we are shifting in some way?
I think it's all of the above. If I understand your question, Michael, what you're saying is due to the fact that we have been somewhat sequestered in our homes for so long. I mean, now, look, let's face it, I think the media is overdoing it. We're not sequestered to our homes. We can go out with conditions, but for a long time, many of us around the planet were. And as a result of being forced to take a time out, we became more by default linked to that which was around us. We had to turn to it more. Is that what you're asking?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Again, isn't universe brilliant? Even though, now see, guys, here's the thing that I've been trying to find a way to articulate this so that y'all understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to say this again. The test of a first, you've heard me say this so many times, you're like, Alexis, don't do it again, but I'm going to quote it again because it'll help me make a point. F. Scott Fitzgerald, the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. My absolute favorite quote in the whole world, and the reason why is this. When you ask the question, am I having these symptoms as a direct result of the pandemic or this new normal, forgive the term, or are these ascension symptoms? Am I becoming a planetary empath or, feeling closer to the planet because I have been sheltered and not able to leave? So I'm pretty much relegated to going in my yard and looking at birds, a lot of bird watchers these days. Or am I a planetary empath? It's both. It's not this or that. It's this and that. Test of a first-rate intelligence is to be able to look at what appear to be opposite causes and know that they coexist. This is what I also call the paradox of reality. In like manner, we can say, you can do one of two things. You can say, all of what's happening right now with this pandemic and all of the other stuff is the result of something not good. We'll leave it pretty vanilla. Something not good for us, not at all. Or it's the shift. A lot of people have a hard time saying it's both. That can cause cognitive dissonance for sure. I say one of the things we're being asked to do, guys, is to step out of polarity, step out of this or that, and learn how to integrate this and that. This takes meditation and silence and really going deep. I don't know that there are even words that can fully describe. I know, and I think some of you know what I'm talking about. This is talked about in many indigenous cultures, particularly in hermetics and alchemy. And not only observing the polarities, but knowing how to fuse them and integrate them so they become blurred, frankly. And so, Michael, going back to your question, what if it's that everything is so brilliantly timed out, divinely timed out, that what appears to have put us in a place of being sequestered to our home, and hopefully many of us have at least a little bit of nature to move around in our yards. Some don't, but many do. Brilliant design, I say. Universe is in charge. Ultimately, you can say what you want. Yeah, there's some crap going on out there for sure. There's some stuff going on, but we won't. That's true too. But if you zoom out and you look at everything that we're talking about here today, what I'm calling both symptoms that are reported by the mainstream that could as well be ascension symptoms. They're both true. I want to read a comment that somebody left me when I was talking about, I hope you're on today, and I don't have her name here, was talking about the fact that we'd be discussing this today. So she wrote back to me. This is very interesting. She says, she's been keeping a log of the strangeness in her life. Let me quote her. I need to keep a log of the strangeness in my life these days. I've never so consistently had such vivid and sometimes lucid dreams. Beyond that is seeing things illuminated in my periphery, seeing shaded shapes moving in my periphery, hearing high-pitched sounds, abrupt feelings of being out of place, seeing certain numbers and sequences daily, noticing synchronicities daily, and it seems to be building. None of it comes across negatively. It all seems to come with positive reinforcement. It all seems to come across with positive reinforcement. I don't know what it's about. She says, I get confused. Either there's something wrong with me or something is becoming right. I don't know, but wow is all I have. I actually wrote back to her. I said, there's nothing wrong with you, my dear. There's nothing wrong with you. It's also interesting how I'm getting so much email and comments from people that are expressing the same sentiment. And frankly, not just with this, but for those that feel themselves to be experiencers of a contact with non-human intelligence, particularly that, I cover that a lot. I'm getting, is it just me? Am I going crazy? No. So many of us, although every experience I say is subjective and unique to us, but so many of us are going through so many of these things. You're not crazy. There's something going on. We're on spaceship Earth together. We're moving through the galaxy together. And that's why it's important that we come together like we are right now and talk. No, you're not alone. And no, you're not going crazy. So I say, again, going back to what the pandemic represents on a 3D level, is this pandemic, forgive the pun, symptomatic of something much bigger that's happening that's literally out of this world? And that's the question that we need to ask ourselves. I have a lot of notes, forgive me, but I want to try to get these points in. Journalist Maureen Seberg, who I love, she's actually a good friend. I had a great conversation with her yesterday. She's a brilliant writer and does a lot of writing for Psychology Today. I wanted to call her and get her sense of sort of reconciling these, what we're calling, I'm going to say first ascension symptoms, and juxtaposing them with other symptoms that people outside of that framework are reporting. By the way, she said unequivocally, the people that she's talking to are saying the same thing in terms of having these physical symptoms, but she agrees that this is more than just a direct byproduct of what we're going through. But it includes it, but does not preclude that there is an ascension process going on. Anyway, in that same vein, she wrote an article called, it's a very interesting title. It's called, It's the Apocalypse. You Need a Duck. I won't even bother explaining that because it's not the point of why I'm bringing her up. In that article, guys, she quoted another piece that was recently written in, of all things, Financial Times by an author named Arundhati Roy in the Financial Times. And the name of the article that this person wrote is called, interestingly, The Pandemic is a Portal. The pandemic is a portal. Now, I know that I read the article, and on the one hand, I think they were using this as a bit of a play on words. And yet there's something that this person said in the article that struck me. I'll quote this as well. This person says, historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. Now, again, I don't want to take this out of context. In fact, I'm going to go on and read a little bit. This person says, we can choose to walk through it. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. Now, obviously, this person is talking about all the layers of what we're going through that's clearly tumultuous. But I do think that I keep saying this person, I don't know if it's a male or female, what this person was getting at, or what they were intimating, is that at some level, on a very 3D level, it is what it is. It is what they say it is. But concurrently, it's representing an invitation to walk through from one world into another. Although I do feel this author meant this more metaphorically, maybe not. I'm not going to assume, but I think there's more to it than that. Something told me to call Maureen Seberg, the journalist that I know, yesterday, and she had that for me. And the timing couldn't be better. I'm going to look at the time. Oh, we're at 34 minutes. I'm not going to go too much longer. So the question is, what do we do with all of this? Okay, so again, we're not going to be able to prove what this is. Again, I think the safe road to take is it's both. I think we need to absolutely be monitoring, like this young woman who wrote to me the comment on Instagram that she sent me that I just read to you. She's writing down what's happening. I think it's important to keep a log about what's happening. And particularly having conversations like this. I know you can't talk to everyone about, are you getting ringing in your ears? Are you having vivid? I don't know. Maybe you want to go out there and maybe survey the people, your neighbors, people not on the street, but other people that you know, because we're going to look back one day, guys, and perhaps we will be fully in the 5D, if you will, or in another dimensional state, almost like a time capsule, and look at all of these things that ushered us into that state. This is really, we're all writing our great American story, not great American, global story, forgive me, global story right now. I do think it's a good idea to write down what's happening, including our emotional state. I'm going to bring up PMH Atwater again. She talked so, what's the word I want to use? Back in January when I had her on the show, she spoke so prophetically about what was to happen. I still can't get over it. I talk about it so much. Please, please, please go watch that show. I had her on just this past week because I was still just blown away by how accurate she was back in January about what was to come. And back in January, one of the things she said to me on that show is that we're in for rough waters here. And I remember specifically, I said to her, well, PMH, what can we do to smooth those waters out? And she said, Alexis, there's nothing that we can do. We can't smooth the water, but we can enjoy the water. And I thought, that's interesting. What does that mean? Not really, but I kind of got what that meant. Go with the tide. You know what happens when you go into the ocean and there's a riptide, and our instinct, or our survival instinct, is to want to try to rush back to shore so we don't get swept out. But invariably, if you go with that tide, not against it, it will be smoother and you will begin to enjoy the ride. And guess what? That tide is so intelligent, it'll bring you back to shore on its own. I think fighting against these symptoms, as an example, I so wish I could record the sound that I'm hearing right now. As I'm looking at you, I can hear it right now. It's constant. I can either fight it or I can go with it. You know what I've been doing, guys? I use it as a tool for meditation rather than trying to shut it out, because there's no shutting it out. It's part of my makeup at this point. Oh, I think I lost Michael. That's okay. Maybe he'll call back. Instead of shutting it out and saying, please stop, please stop, please stop, I'm saying, apparently it's something that I need for the moment, so I'm going to use it as a tool. Okay. One other thing I want to bring up. Oh, here's Michael. Hold on, guys. That's how it works. Hold on, guys. Hi, Michael. Okay, I'm going to keep going here.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Something else PMH said. Her ears must be burning or buzzing because I'm talking about her so much, but she has so many poignant things to say. You probably know this already, but the word or the sound hue means simply God. Hue. God. We are human. PMH brought that up in our show just this last week. Again, she's brought it up before. As if to say, not as if to say, it is said, we are gods. Ye are gods in the making. Ye are gods in the making. Human, God, man, coming together. Could all of this be at some level and in some way that initiation to bring us from mortal man to, okay, gods with a little g? I know that can be, touchy for people, even just saying that G word. But if that is said, and that is in the Bible, ye are gods in the making, human. And yet the transition from 3D and being in 3D bodies and all that comes with it, going to godlike status, little g true, but godlike status nonetheless, it's going to have growing pains. I think I just brought this up somewhere recently. I think in Conscious Commentary in the Garden last week. Coming through that birth canal sucks. It's painful, is it not? If we are being birthed into a new world, a new dimension, maybe we're there already, we've got to adjust. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. Tom Campbell, I love to quote people repeatedly. I'll do it again. The physicist who wrote My Big Toe, love his idea of entropy being a, how does he say it? Entropy is a entropy reduction. We are going through an entropy reduction trainer for souls. Linda Moulton Howe told me that when we were out in California together, that's what he said. And I've never gotten that quote directly from him, but I'm going to have to get a hold of him. He believes that the pain that we go through, that we call entropy, is nothing more than learning how to reduce entropy as a training ground so we can graduate to the next level. All of this makes sense to me. So look at what we're going through now. A lot of pain, physical symptoms, ascension symptoms. I think I'm going to stop there. If there are, because we're at 40 minutes. Michael, I'm going to ask one more time. Oh, well, you know what I want to say? Tim R., I hear you. Your world will change on a dime. You saw that interview, didn't you? Your world will change on a dime. Allison, I'm just going to read a couple of things. Allison is saying, as much as the world is in turmoil right now, I know it's all going to be okay in the end. Thank you, Allison. I agree with you. I say it's going to be better than okay. I think it's going to be magnificent. I really do. History has shown over and over again that pain is par for the course when we're about to enter a new chapter. Really is. So we have to keep that in mind. We don't have to struggle. Carmela, that's a good point. Carmela says we don't have to struggle. You know, it was Buddha that sat under the Bodhi tree and asked that question. Why is it that life has to be so painful? Does it have to be? I don't have an answer. Apparently it is. If this is an entropy reduction trainer for souls, it would make sense. That's why I love that quote so much. So, okay, I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you got something out of this. And as always, I appreciate you all being here. I can't wait. I'm going to go back when I can relax, watch the replay. I hope you do too. And really, I can look at the chat and we'll pick up the conversation in a couple of weeks. Let me tell you about very quickly, where are we? It's Friday, Wednesday's guest, and it relates to what's happening right now. What we talked about today, Stephen Halpern. I'm so excited. Stephen Halpern, if you don't know that name, he is considered one of our best new age recording artists, Grammy nominated. In fact, I had the pleasure of doing recorded a meditation to his Deep Alpha, one of his Deep Alpha tracks with him. Stephen's going to be on the show. I'm trying to get him to actually play something for us. And what I want to talk to Stephen about is, particularly in dealing with all of the symptoms that many of us are going through, how can sound be a role in mitigating the deleterious effects of these things that we're going through. So maybe he'll play a little bit for us. I know he's going to have some recommendations. He's brilliant. He's not just an artist, a recording artist. He's I call him the sound scientist and I know he's getting a lot of requests based on what's going on right now. Thank you, Carmela. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Mary. I'm seeing all the thank you. I love you guys. I love you. I hope you're going to do something fun. We're getting ready for, what is it, Michael? Tropical storm something or other is moving up the East Coast. So I'm going to try to get outside and before the rain comes down. So I think that's it for now, guys. Unless there's any question, anything coming up. I love you all.
Covered the questions I had. There was one comment that I thought was good. Careful Carpenter says the goat herd cannot go through the eye of the needle as one. One by one, they unite on the other side.
I love that. Thank you for that. Absolutely. We are going to be okay.
A lot of great comments in chat. Yeah. Again, thank you everyone that's watching. And please, if you haven't, hit that subscribe button.
Please do.
It's the easiest and cheapest way to support Higher Journeys. You're all journeyers, but just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment for us. We love to read comments, and we like to see what we're doing and what we want to do more of or less.
Right. Now more than ever, guys, especially, look, we've got everybody and their mother saying, hit that like button, only if you do, hit that subscribe button. But it is true. And particularly with the things that we are talking about, I still know that there are a ton of people out there that are looking for messages like this, not just with my show, but with others as well. But with my show, including my show, that aren't aware. They're not aware because they're so absorbed in other stuff. So by you subscribing helps you to proliferate the show even more. We can have more people involved. This is what it's about, because we are all in this together. We may not all come out of it at the same place together, but we are all in it at the moment together. So I would so appreciate it if you would subscribe. All right, that's it.
And real quick, people, up in the chat, I went ahead and put Stephen Halpern's website up there, so it's in the chat. Want to check it out after the show, and the PMH Atwater episode is also just a few lines above that. So that's in the chat box. Thanks again.
Good deal. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Have a fabulous weekend wherever you may be on this little blue planet. I love you. Bye now.